Good morning, eighth graders. I hope everybody is doing awesome today. It's Wednesday already. Um, the weeks are flying by. They seem to go slow, but yet fly by at the same time. It's a crazy paradox. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Today's book talk is called Rebound by Kwame Alexander, and it actually totally goes along with yesterday's book, which was the crossover, the graphic novel. This is the prequel to the crossover. So the original crossover was also a novel in verse, just like Rebound is. Novels in verse are amazing, especially if you're someone who really needs to build their reading stamina, because they are written in poem form, so there are fewer words on a page, and the words are so carefully chosen to make sure that they tell the best story possible in as few of words as possible. So anyway, the crossover, which is in graphic novel and novel in verse form, is about two twin boys, Josh and Jordan Bell, who are basketball players. This story is about their dad and his life and how he got into basketball. And if you like basketball, this is an amazing book for you. But even if you don't really like it or it's not your thing, it's still just an awesome, awesome book. So I highly recommend that. I loved it, and I think that you will too. Okay, taking a peek at our planner for today. Today we are reading chapter 11 in The Outsiders, and we are going to be talking about the growth of character development. It would be a better way to say that. So I'm going to talk about character development, then read chapter 11 to you. After that, you will go into Otis and answer today's questions. So what is character development? And if you saw this yesterday, this is one of my favorite parts about literature, because it so mirrors real life. Because just like characters in books change and grow and have their different personality quirks and things like that, so do people in real life. And I love getting to know people and understanding people. And so it's just interesting to be able to do that through a book as well. So anyway, character development is the craft of giving a character a personality, depth, and motivations that propel them through a story. Character development is also defined as how the character evolves through the course of a story. Believable characters are unique and three-dimensional. Just like people in real life are unique, no one's exactly the same, and have a lot of things that really make them come alive and stand out and be three-dimensional, so are good characters in a book. Okay, so first thing with characters, in any book, you're going to have round characters and you have flat characters. So a round character is usually the main character or characters, and that is a character that is simply interesting and layered. That means there's lots of different things about them. Round characters are usually memorable, relatable, and have complex behaviors. Their actions can be surprising. They are realistic and authentic. Just like real people, they might have character traits that contradict each other. For instance, they could be, written as a really nice character, but they're kind of terrible to their siblings. Just like some of you might be really nice to some people, but yet you have this side of you that's different. Okay, that's how most people are. They have things about themselves that contradict each other. For instance, I love people and I love getting to know people and I can talk forever. However, I'm kind of an introvert too. I also really like being alone. I really like quiet and things like that. So those two things seem to contradict each other. Sometimes I'll tell people that I'm kind of introverted and they'll be like, "What?" And they won't even believe me. So anyway, that's part of being a round character. Then there are flat characters, and usually these are like the minor characters in a story, and they're two-dimensional. There's really not that much going on with them. They're relatively uncomplicated. They don't really change throughout the course of the story, and they're often stereotypes. So in The Outsiders, Dally is kind of a flat character. He doesn't change or grow. He's the same mean thug. Yes, towards the end of the book, we see that he has some love for Johnny, but he is kind of a stereotype of your typical greaser hood, okay? So those are round characters and flat characters. Then we also have dynamic characters and static characters. And a dynamic character is a character that undergoes an inner change within the story, such as a change in personality, attitude, or growth as a person. So in The Outsiders, Ponyboy is definitely a dynamic character. He learns a lot about himself, seeing that he can live where he lives and still be going places. He can see that greasers and socias are not just the labels that society has given them, and you cannot completely judge someone by their looks. We see that he begins to understand Derry and why he does the things the way he does, and why he is mean and hard on Ponyboy sometimes. In the beginning of the story, he was very selfish and self-centered. He only saw Derry as being mean to him, and he's pouting and acting like a little baby. But now he's beginning to grow up and to see things from other people's point of view. He's beginning to have empathy for others. Just like he also had empathy for some of the socias, for Randy and for Cherry, and saw that them as real people. Whereas the beginning of the book, he just like made a blanket statement. He hates most guys with green eyes. The socias often have green eyes. He hates socias, but now he's beginning to see them as individuals. So Ponyboy is definitely a dynamic character who has grown throughout the course of the story. On the opposite end of that, there are static characters. And a static character does not undergo an important change in the course of the story. Again, Dally is a good example of that. They just kind of stay the same. Yes, we get to know a little bit more about Dally, but that doesn't mean that he changed. All right, so all that being said, and I know I talk super fast, but you can always pause and go back and rewind something if you don't understand. But now we are going to go ahead and read chapter 11. All right. So where we last left off, Ponyboy was out with a concussion, dehydration, just probably stress and trauma for a few days after the rumble. Johnny and Dally have both passed away. And now their biggest challenge right now is they are going to have to go to court to decide whether the Curtis brothers get to stay together or not, or if Ponyboy and Soda are going to be placed in either a foster home or a group home or something like that. All right, chapter 11. I had to stay in bed a whole week after that. That bugged me. I'm not the kind that can lie around looking at the ceiling all the time. I read most of the time and drew pictures. One day I started flipping through one of Soda's old yearbooks and came across a picture that seemed vaguely familiar. Not even when I read the name Robert Sheldon did it hit me who it was. And then I finally realized it was Bob. I took a real good long look at it. The picture didn't look a whole lot like the Bob I remembered, but nobody ever looks a whole lot like his picture in the yearbook anyway. He had been a sophomore that year. That would make him about 18 when he died. Yeah, he was good looking, even then, with a grin that reminded me of Soda's, a kind of reckless grin. He had been a handsome, black-haired boy with dark eyes, maybe brown like Soda's, maybe dark blue like the shepherd eyes. Maybe he'd had black eyes, like Johnny. I had never given Bob much thought. I hadn't had time to think. But that day I wondered about him. What was he like? I knew he liked to pick fights, had the usual social belief that living on the west side made you Mr. Super Tough, looked good in dark wine-colored sweaters, and was proud of his rings. But what about the Bob Sheldon that Cherry Valance knew? She was a smart girl. She didn't like him just because he was good-looking. Sweet and friendly, stands out from the crowd. That was what she had said. A real person, the best buddy a guy ever had, kept trying to make somebody stop him. Randy had told me that. Did he have a kid brother who idolized him? Maybe a big brother who kept bugging him not to be so wild? His parents let him run wild. Because they loved him too much or too little? Did they hate us now? I hoped they hated us. And that they weren't full of that pity the victims of the environment junk the social workers kept handing Curly Shepherd every time he got sent off to reform school. I'd rather have anybody's hate than their pity. But then maybe they understood, like Cherry Valance. I looked at Bob's picture, and I could begin to see the person we had killed. A reckless, hot-tempered boy, cocky and scared stiff at the same time. Ponyboy? Yeah? I didn't look up. I thought it was the doctor. He'd been coming over to see me almost every day, although he didn't do much except talk to me. There's a guy here to see you. Says he knows you. Something in Derry's voice made me look up, and his eyes were hard. His name's Randy. Yeah, I know him, I said. You want to see him? Yeah, I shrugged. Sure, why not? A few guys from school had dropped by to see me. I have quite a few friends at school, even if I am younger than most of them and don't talk much. But that's what they are, school friends, not buddies. I had been glad to see them, but it bothered me because we live in kind of a lousy neighborhood, and our house isn't real great. It's run down looking and everything, and the inside's kind of poor looking too, even though for a bunch of boys we do a pretty good job of house cleaning. Most of my friends at school come from good homes. Not filthy rich like the Soches, but middle class anyway. It was a funny thing. It bugged me about my friends seeing our house, but I couldn't have cared less about what Randy thought. Hi, Ponyboy. Randy looked uncomfortable, standing in the doorway. Hey, Randy, I said. Have a seat if you can find one. Books were lying all over everything. He pushed a couple off a chair and sat down. Sorry. How are you feeling? Cherry told me your name was on the school bulletin. I'm okay. You can't really miss my name on any kind of bulletin. He still looked uncomfortable, although he tried to grin. Want to smoke? I offered him a weed, but he shook his head. No thanks. Ponyboy, one reason I came here was to see if you were okay. But we gotta go see the judge tomorrow. Yeah, I said, lighting a cigarette. I know. Hey, holler if you see one of my brothers coming. I'll catch it for smoking in bed. My dad says for me to tell the truth and nobody can get hurt. He's kind of upset about all this. I mean, my dad's a good guy and everything, better than most, and I kind of let him down, being mixed up in all this. I just looked at him. That was the dumbest remark I ever heard anyone make. He thought he was mixed up in this? He didn't kill anyone. He didn't get his head busted in a rumble. It wasn't his buddy that was shot down under a streetlight. Besides, what did he have to lose? His old man was rich. He could pay whatever fine there was for being drunk and picking a fight. I wouldn't mind getting fined, Randy said, but I feel lousy about the old man, and it's the first time I felt anything in a long time. The only thing I'd felt in a long time was being scared stiff. I put off thinking about the judge and hearing for as long as I could. Soda and Derry didn't like to talk about it either, so we were all silently counting off the days while I was sick, counting the days that we had left together. But with Randy sticking solidly to the subject, it was impossible to think about anything else. My cigarette started trembling. I guess your folks feel kind of awful about it, too. My parents are dead. I live here with just Derry and Soda, my brothers. I took a long drag on my cigarette. That's what's worrying me. If the judge decides Derry isn't a good guardian or something, I'm liable to get stuck in a home somewhere. That's the rotten part of this deal. Derry is a good guardian. He makes me study and knows where I am and who I'm with all the time. I mean, we don't get along so great sometimes, but he keeps me out of trouble, or did. My father didn't yell at me as much as he does. I didn't know that. Randy looked worried. He really did. A Soch even, worried because some kid greaser was on his way to a foster home or something. That was really funny. I don't mean funny. You know what I mean. Listen to me, Pony. You didn't do anything. It was your friend Johnny that had the knife. I had it. I stopped him. He was looking at me strangely. I had the knife. I killed Bob. Randy shook his head. I saw it. You were almost drowned. It was the black-headed guy that had the switchblade. Bob scared him into doing it. I saw it. I was bewildered. I killed him. I had a switchblade, and I was scared they were going to beat me up. No, kid. No, it was your friend, the one who died in the hospital. Johnny is not dead. My voice was shaking. Johnny is not dead. Hey, Randy? Gary stuck his head in the door. I think you better go now. Sure, Randy said. He was still looking at me kind of funny. See you around, Pony Boy. Don't ever say anything to him about Johnny, I heard Derry say in a low voice as they went out. He's still pretty racked up mentally and emotionally. The doc said he'd get over it if we gave him time. I swallowed hard and blinked. He was just like all the rest of the Socs. Cold-blooded, mean. Johnny didn't have anything to do with Bob's getting killed. Pony Boy Curtis, put out that cigarette. Okay, I put it out. I ain't gonna go to sleep smoking, Derry. You make me stay in bed, there ain't anywhere else I can smoke. You're not gonna die if you don't get a smoke, but if that bed catches on fire, you will. You couldn't make it through the door through that mess. Well, golly, I can't pick it up, and Soda doesn't, so I guess that leaves you. He was giving me one of those looks. All right, I said, that don't leave you. Maybe Soda'll straighten it up a little today. Maybe you could be a little neater, huh, little buddy? He'd never called me that before. Soda was the only one he ever called little buddy. Sure, I said, I'll be more careful. All right, and that is the end of chapter 11. Tomorrow we read chapter 12, which is the last chapter of the book. So exciting stuff. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.